Okay, it looks like we're live. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Yeah, this is things have changed since Friday. Massively, I guess. It's still early days, what's going on in Israel and Palestine. The title of the live stream, of course, is Financial and Economic Repercussions of the Israel-Hamas conflict. And I use the Hamas because that seems to be what the narrative is, Hamas. But I think it's more Israel versus Palestine. And I'm going to focus more on the financial and economic impact it could have, not just on Israel and the region there, but the whole world. And some people might think, why would it have any impact? Well, we'll look back in history, of course, which seems to be repeating exactly 50 years after the Yom Kippur War in 1973. We're going to look at it historically, why it was so important in the 1970s, that war. And then we're going to see, I'm going to give you my opinion of what could happen. There's so many opinions out there of what's going on, but hopefully I'll just give you my opinion, and you may take it on board or not. And what else? I'm not trying to either judge either side here. We're just going to focus on the bigger picture. So I'm going to be like Switzerland. I'm going to be kind of neutral. And some people might say, oh, why? You know, where are your principles? But yeah, I do have my principles, but sometimes what's the point of going on about things that we can't really impact or make a difference? The problems in that region have been ongoing for many decades, right after 1948, or even before 1948. And maybe we'll go over a little bit of the history, which I'm a little bit familiar with, not just of post-World War II, but also in the run-up to World War I, what that part of the world was actually part of the Ottoman Empire. So it was run by the Turks. So it's nice to see a lot of you here. Let's see, we've got Telet Faramad, my thoughts exactly back to the 1970s. He says gold and oil going up. Well, normally that's what you'd think, because that's what happened in 1973. But you never know with these markets. But if I had to bet, yes, I'd agree with you. Mayday says, good to see Rafi. Glad he's okay. Yeah, I mean, he's in the northern part of that country, so I think he should be all right. Kubina Kombi is here. Camille Stringer says gold will go down. Well, it could. Good evening from sunny Reading. Yeah, it was warm here today for October. I actually played golf for the first time in a month. And it was 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 degrees Celsius, and there's no wind. It was really warm. It felt like you're playing in the summer. The only way you could tell it was in summer is because the sun was very low in the sky, which usually doesn't happen in the summer. Olivier Leroy, good evening from Paris. It's 19 degrees there. Belly Dance Radio, all leaders playing their part. There is a lot of talk about that, I have to admit. Enduro Rama says, hello, everyone. Metal should move up tomorrow. Well, they actually start trading on Sunday. I think it's 6 p.m. Eastern time and 11 p.m. London. Kubena Kombi, says the economic system is between a heart attack with rising interest rates, unemployment, and the stroke with lowering rates, hyperinflation. Yeah, and we'll come to that in a minute and about this current war, why I think that could be kind of related. Cupid Stunt says we are in biblical times. Yeah, Rudy's here. He's doing well. 903 boater from Michigan, not Joe King. Volo sunglasses from Essex. Lord Humongous, nice to always see you here. Long time supporter. XRP Daddy says hello, Mario. Riqua from Montreal. Darren Smith. How's Rudy? He's doing really well. You can see he's lying there. He's doing well. Belly Dance Arabia says thumbs up. Pablo Pina. Jane DR from North Wales. So I've gotten through a lot of people who are here. If you are watching this recorded, move up to about 7 minutes if you don't want to wait. Paula Gandolfo, how do we stop the wars? Well, that's a good one. That's a good question. I don't know. I think unfortunately people get brainwashed. I think it's psyops, and it's like any other crisis. And unfortunately, the people who are in charge and have been in charge for it, well, I don't know for how long, hundreds of years, if not thousands. They use wars to accomplish goals that would probably take too long to accomplish, and I think that's why they use wars. And yeah, war is the best kind of business for the people that are in charge, in my opinion. It's it's full. They're hedged. they back both sides. One side loses, but the other side gains, and it also affects the way people think, and it also allows them to change things like the monetary system and everything else, the economic system. World War I put an end to to sound money forever, at least in Europe. In the States, it held on. So yeah, I don't know what this is all about, but there is something that they're looking for, in my opinion, here. Norm, yeah, I agree. War is a racket. That's right. People make, yeah, and that's a comment from Smedley Butler. I recommend that pamphlet he wrote. Easy to get that. It shows how many millionaires were made during World War I in the US, and how they rip off the taxpayer when invoicing for war equipment and for, yeah, it's really truly sickening, I would say. Nevertheless, I am saved. He's in Kansas, or she, I'm not sure. Jane DR says we should make the leaders battle it out and leave the poor civilians alone, people who want to have peace. Yeah, I mean, actually, you go back in time, in history, the kings, they actually fought their battles and their wars. I mean, I couldn't see Joe Biden fighting a war, or even Donald Trump going on a horse trying to fight a war, or King Charles fighting a war. And the other thing I think they should do, like the politicians should send their children and their nephews and nieces first, and then everyone else. Well, and then, well, maybe not even everyone else, because they'd realize it was a mistake. And here in the UK as well, MPs should send their children their relatives, extended family first, but they would never do that, right? Because they're in charge. They make the rules. BP asks, in relation to the Great Taking, heard that real estate in the UK is technically crown land, meaning that homeowners do not own their property and at risk to have their property taken. I'm not too sure about that one. I think there is something called if you have a freehold, I think you do own the land. I think it's only if you own the property and the land is a leasehold, but you could be right. But anywhere around the world, government, it's not just in the UK, they can take anything from you. I mean, they took people's gold in the US in 1933. Dilwyn Roberts says, Rafi said IDF says something stinks, Hamas-Israel conflict. Yeah, I saw that. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I went out when I came back from golf. I walked up to a shop to buy something, and I looked at the headlines in the on the newspapers, and the Telegraph's big headline said, "This is Israel's 9/11." So that's how the narrative is going. It's going to be significant, I think, not just for Israel, and we'll come to that in a minute while I talk to you guys. Our time is out, says, teach Rudy to put his paw up and down for the price of metals. Urban Sombrero says, distraction everywhere. That's true. Bally Dance Arabia talking about US debt clock and gold. I don't really follow that debt clock in terms of the gold price. I'm not sure how they get it. The gold price, I know it's manipulated. The gold price really is where it trades right now. Of course, I think it will go a lot higher because they don't have a choice but to keep inflating. Because once you start on a fiat currency system, it always goes to zero. And they always try to avoid going back to sound money. And it's only after complete collapse that they're forced to. Big Shroom, thank you for your super chat. Thank you for your insight. Will commodities repeat their rally like October 1973 Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur War? Yeah, I think Yom Kippur this year was a little earlier because the calendar's different. Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about. So we'll start that now. That's a good question to start out with. Well, what happened in 1973 then? Well, the Yom Kippur War started. I guess I'm not too sure exactly how it started, but it was they were fighting the same people fighting each other. And then the king of Saudi Arabia, I think it was King Faisal at the time, he decided with OPEC to embargo all the countries that were supporting Israel in that war, embargo the oil. And oil went up, and I've got some charts here for you guys of what oil did. Let's see. Oil went up basically from just over $3. Let's have a look here. So there we go. 1973, here we are, May. I mean, it was going up already. It's almost like they knew something was going to happen. But yeah, it basically went, I think, to like $12 almost. From October 1973, it went from around $3 to $12 by the end of March. So it quadrupled in price. And I mean, prior to 1973, we were already seeing inflationary pressures. The U.S. had been inflating to pay for the Vietnam War, to pay for the Great Society program, welfare program of Lyndon Johnson. That led to, in 1968, of course, the breakup of the London gold pool, which they're trying to keep the price of gold pegged to $35. And eventually, in 1971, August 15th, Nixon had to close the gold window because the United States Treasury was going to run out of gold because they just printed and borrowed too much currency and didn't have gold backing for it. So I guess what this oil embargo and the Yom Kippur War, which only lasted, I think, about 20 days or so, even though it only lasted 20 days, it did the damage because of OPEC embargo. And I remember I was probably about 9, and I was living in Brazil. I grew up in Brazil, and everything went up in price. I mean, oil went up, and I remember seeing in the news that people were queuing up in the US, especially for oil, for petrol or for gasoline. And it affected, it was probably one of the triggers for the second leg, if you want to say, or for the major leg of the commodity bull market in the 1970s and early 80s. But I remember, and I was even victim to this idea in the 80s, and because everyone talks about it. Oh, it was because the Arabs embargoed oil, that's why we had inflation. But having known now in the last 20 years what was really happening before 1973, I think it was just a cover. And also it was a lot of people think the Saudis and the Americans were working together, and I wouldn't be surprised, because after 1971, the U.S. needed something to back the dollar. So the Saudis said, well, we will help, but we need a higher price. So they had to kind of create a crisis, maybe. So that's what happened in the 70s. That's the way I see it. Some people might have different opinion. So now we're going to come back to present day 2023. Could this be another repeat? Well, it's not going to be exact, even though it's 50 years later, almost to the day. I think the Yom Kippur War started October 6th. I guess in some places in the US it was October 6th, but in Israel and Palestine it was October 7th. So I think the most important thing now is to see the reaction from the West, and I guess you could say BRICS plus now, because there were no BRICS back in the 1970s, but the BRICS now have Russia, China, India. We got Saudi Arabia joining next year. You got Iran. You've got United Arab Emirates. A lot of we got Egypt as well, which is strange, isn't it? Because Egypt is a big part of this problem, I think, as well, the conflict. And I think only time will tell, or it could be very quickly. Next week, we could have maybe another embargo. The Saudis could say, well, anyone who's supporting the Israel, we're going to embargo oil to them. Or even if they don't have an embargo, I tweeted something out yesterday. Let's see if I can find it. Or I X'd. It's now called X, isn't it? So this is what I wanted to show you. And this is why I think it's really important. Oh, the other country I forgot, which is part of the BRICS now too, is Iran. or Iran, as some would call it, or Persia. So this is why I think this is important. Even if we don't have an embargo, I just saw that the United States Navy sent ships to the Mediterranean to near Israel. I mean, that could start some kind of trouble. But this is what I said. This is why, and a lot of people, of course, if I don't watch the mainstream media, but I see some clips sometimes, everyone's going on about like how Iran is like basically helping Hamas and the Palestinians, how Iran wants to destroy Israel. And this is what they say. It's not what I believe in, but anyway, this is what I tweeted yesterday, October 7th, as you can see. This is why Iran potentially becoming directly involved in this latest war in the Middle East would put a rocket up the oil price. So I just tweeted out, what proportion of the world's daily oil consumption or shipments flow through the Strait of Hormuz. And I'll come to the Strait of Hormuz in a minute. So it says oil tankers carry approximately 17 million barrels of oil each day through the strait, or 20 to 30% of the world's total consumption. Other outlets for oil exports from the region, such as pipelines, are limited. As such, approximately 88% of all oil leaving the Persian Gulf goes via the Strait of Hormuz. So that's why it's important there. So even if there isn't an embargo, you could have basically a fifth of the world's oil be blocked there. And let's have a look at why the Strait of Hormuz is so important. Let's have a look. Strait of Hormuz. I'm sure a lot of you know it. So here we go. Yeah, those tankers come through here. So right now the US has got naval vessels here, and who knows what's going to happen. Or Saudi Arabia, I was reading, they still don't recognize they don't recognize Israel, I don't think, as a state, nor does Qatar. Qatar is where is it? Over here. I'm not sure about the United Arab Emirates. So I think it could get very interesting. Gold as well. I'm going to show you what gold did. Or let's look at some questions now. Lord Humongous says God is in control. Belly. Hi, Scott Sam. Thousand Silver says Muslims have been talking about the big cities, London, New York, Paris, could get spicy. A holy war would be sparked if it does not de-escalate. Yeah, I think that's the main thing we need to keep an eye on. Okay, let's have a look at gold, what it did during that time period of the Yom Kippur War. Okay, so here we go. So that's the October 1973. So, I mean, it went up a little bit right after, I guess, the war was triggered, and then it came off, actually. It came off down from over 100 to 90. But by November, it started going up, and it actually went up, it doubled from $90 to 180. But I would say things are quite different financially now. Of course, we have the same, I would say, inflation problem that we had in the 70s. And if you don't believe me, just look at how even the mainstream now is coming around to the fact that interest rates are going to have to stay a lot higher for a lot longer. Well, that's because of inflation. And inflation, as we all know, hopefully you've been listening to me, what it really is the creation of currency and credit out of thin air. The rising prices are the consequence of inflation. And and right now the Fed has a problem because they're supposed to be unwinding their balance sheet. The United States is running huge budget deficits. The debt is getting out of control. Interest rates are going to stay high. The economies are slowing down. What do we do? Well, we need an excuse. Maybe if there is a spike in oil, and you saw that spike in oil in 1973, it was trading around $3. It went up to 12, and we never saw $3 again, except for 2020, when we dropped to a negative number. But that was to do with them shutting things down and making delivery like impossible in Oklahoma. And that's why it went negative, I would say. But what I'm trying to say here, we could see oil easily go to $150 to $100 and then never go back below 100 again. And as for gold, it's anyone's guess where it could go. But I think it could go a lot higher. But it's not even gold going up; it's the dollar going down, and the U.S. needs the powers that be need a cover. They can say, look, we didn't really depreciate the dollar versus gold. It was because of the Hamas guys. They started this. It's their fault. And that's not what I believe. I'm just saying what they would tell you. I mean, the history of that region, you need to go back a long time. It's not even just after 1948. So we got a question here from BP. Chinese Golden Week is over. Yeah, I know. I think a lot of times in Golden Week in October, when the Chinese are off, the West takes advantage of that, and they smack the paper price. So I do expect, outside what's going on in the Middle East, I do expect gold to get a firmer bid as the Chinese come back. And I saw as well that in, I think it was September. Was it September? Let's have a look. The Chinese bought another 29 tons of gold, 29 metric tons. That's 11 months in a row that they've been buying gold. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, here we go. I think it was Paul from this series report who tweeted this, and I've got his tweet here, or his post on X. China added another 29 tons of gold in September. So much for the nonsense about China needing dollars. They continue to dump US dollars and US treasuries for gold. So there you go. Oh, I haven't shared this, have I? Have I? Let's have a look. I don't think I shared this. So, or I did. So, but there you go. 29 tons of gold. That's in September. I think it's this 11th straight month, and they're announcing it as well. The Chinese used to take 2 to 3 years to announce their new gold holdings. Now they're doing it every month. I think they're trying to give people a signal, and people like us in the the gold bug community, we know about this. Very few people notice that, and I think that's significant. Brown Eye Lady says the USA needs to start drilling for oil. Well, recommend this book, Energy Non-Crisis by Lindsay Williams. the U.S. has enough oil for the next hundreds of years, or 200, 300 years, all in the in Alaska. But for some reason, they don't want to dip into that oil. Maybe it's got all to do with where Israel is, and all the other countries that have the oil there. They want to control the flow of oil. I'm not sure, but yeah, you're right about that. Scott Dorsey, yeah, they are bankers' war. All wars are bankers' war. I agree, and yeah, this would help the system a little bit, because inflation, in this case, yeah, there would be inflation. I guess it would be caused. It's always a monetary phenomenon, but if something like oil, its supply gets curtailed, it does affect. Yeah, it will drive up the price of oil, and oil is so important for the economy, and it would inflate everything, and it would give. The other thing it would give would be the Federal Reserve and other central banks the excuse to stop QT and to stop raising rates. And they say, "Oh, this is an emergency. This is an existential threat to democracy and to Israel. We're going to have to start printing more trillions." And those trillions would be totally devalued, of course, but it will keep the system going for a bit longer. I mean, that's the way I see it. It could be wrong. We could, look in an hour and 40 minutes when the futures open, gold would be down, oil won't go anywhere, but I doubt it. And as I said, it's still too early, even though it looks like, I think Benjamin Netanyahu said that this is going to last a long time, this conflict. But even if it doesn't last a long time, the Yom Kippur War, I think lasts about 20 days. But the oil embargo had a huge impact for years. So we never know. Richard Martin, aloha, Mario. Could you share your thoughts on the Balfour Declaration? Oh, yeah, that's a good question there. I was thinking about that. Balfour, I think his name was Lord Balfour. He was the foreign secretary of the UK during World War I. And it's funny enough, I used to belong to a golf club where there's a picture of him there. He went to inaugurate that golf club, I think in 1907, Lord Balfour. But basically, prior to World War I, that region there, Palestine, it was called, was part of the Ottoman Empire. And then in 1917, I think it was it was General Allenby. He conquered Jerusalem. So the British took over Jerusalem and Palestine. It became a protectorate. And in 1917, and I think it was one of the Rothschilds, it could have been Lord Rothschild. He sent a letter to Lord Balfour, who was foreign secretary, asking him to make sure that the British policy would be to eventually create a Jewish state in Palestine. So that's the Balfour Declaration, and that's the foreign policy the British followed. And in 1948, I think it was 48, the UN recognized Israel. It was created. And then as the UK's power and empire dwindled and didn't have the power anymore, they passed the baton to the Americans. So that's how important the Balfour Declaration was. And there are some people who even think, I mean, and this is just speculation, that World War I was triggered. Yeah, they tell us it was because of Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo. But some people think the main reason behind World War I was to break up a lot of empires. They broke up the German Empire, they broke up the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they broke up the Ottoman Empire. If there hadn't been a World War I, there wouldn't be probably have been a Balfour Declaration, and you wouldn't have had eventually the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. So yeah, that's how important it is. Sykes-Picot Agreement, yeah, that was, yeah, the way they divided up the Middle East, the French and the British, it was pretty much, you know, they didn't really look at, yeah, it was it's like, you know, Chinese conquered the UK, and they divide up the UK again, and they give, you know, the north of England to Scotland, and then they give, let's say, the whole of the middle of England to Wales. I mean, that would create massive problems. So that's the Sykes-Picot. And some of those countries or nations, they didn't even have the system of government or recognizing countries like we did. So Peter Barnacle says IDF took 7 hours to respond. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, that's, you know, that's what part of what Rafi was saying, that he is quite suspicious the way that it started yesterday, and I tend to agree with him. And it seems like the mainstream media, I did listen to a little bit to the radio this morning when I was driving to the golf club, LBC, and they all seem to be saying the same thing. You know, they've got like a script, and it reminds me, excuse me, of what happened in New York on September 11th. They all had like a script, and also on 7/7. And guess who was in London when 7/7 happened? And I remember it well because it happened near where I worked in the city. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu happened to be at Liverpool Street in a hotel there, which is near my office, and Ehud Barak. They were in London when that happened. So yeah, it's suspicious. Requa says, yeah, divide and conquer. That's right. But, you know, I said that the purpose of this live stream is to talk about the financial and economic impact of, well, the perspective, the potential of this crisis. And I think it could be a repeat of the 70s, you know, where you see a massive rise in oil, and that would hurt us even more, you know, the whole economy. But it would give them an excuse to keep inflating. I would say they could use it as a cover. And hopefully, and I'm not saying this because I want this to happen, and I want to see gold and oil and commodities go up, so that those of us who have been fortunate enough to get some gold and silver make huge profits and do well. No, I just think that's what could happen. And yeah, I'm not trying to drop, you know, my hope is that this war ends tomorrow and they make peace and everything's back to normal again. But for some reason, I don't think that's going to be the way it's going to play out. So we might as well be able to, you know, hopefully be capable of looking after ourselves, our families and friends, and yeah, and try to expose, you know, how these things are done. Maybe more and more people wake up, they won't be able to do it, or maybe they won't even be able to do it this time around. I don't know. Peter Barnacle, yeah, you know, the Suez Canal as well, that's very important, of course. A lot of the oil has to come through the Strait of Hormuz, and then a lot of it goes back up the canal, Suez Canal. but and also a lot of the oil goes to Asia. So, oh, Rudy, come on, you want to come down, boy? Come on. He can jump. I don't know why he's not jumping. David Lanham, what happens to 3% mortgages when regional banks fail and get bought by too big to fail banks? Yeah, I guess they would be toxic assets, but a lot of the I mean they could start chart, even though you could have a fixed mortgage, they might really change things. You never know. But I would say, JP Morgan, I don't know how much it has in assets, over $3 trillion. If it takes over 500 million of a regional bank, it won't make much difference. But if there is a big crisis, yeah, it could be a problem. That's why and I know this is difficult, but I always try to tell people to try to pay off your mortgage as much as possible and all your debts as well. Profiler X, Anthony Sutton wrote an excellent book about the crisis in the 70s, internal energy that created crisis. Yeah, I mean, Anthony Sutton wrote great books. He wrote Bolshevik, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. Yeah, and he was a researcher for the was it in California, one of the mainstream institutes there, like very mainstream, and eventually they had to let him go because he was finding out too many things. The Hoover Institution, yeah, he was finding out a lot of things that they didn't want him to come out and tell the public. But Lindsay Williams as well wrote The Energy Non-Crisis. And back in 1973, it was not just the OPEC or Saudi oil embargo that drove the price of oil higher. Lindsay Williams, there's one full chapter about when he was out west and on a ranch. This rancher had one of the oil pipelines from west to east going through his ranch, and he told Lindsay Williams, we were told by the government and the oil companies to turn off the pipelines. So it was, I think it was something that they worked together in doing. It was not just the Saudis wouldn't have done the embargo if they hadn't been told to. I would say. BP, will the UK support Israel if needed? Doesn't the UK have a large? Well, if you look at all the comments from the UK government, they're all behind Israel. So there you go. Lord Humonger says he's tired of sleeping in this tent. 42 minutes. Yeah, I've got another 30 minutes. Maybe I'll do a little less today because I am a bit tired. Albert Pike quote about World War III. Yeah, I've heard of that. Rudy, come on, boy. Let me go get him. Come on. There we go. Say hello, Rudy. Oh, the other thing, I don't know if anyone's heard of the Gog Magog prophecy, and that says that the kings of the north will come and invade Israel. I don't know if you've heard of that. And there's a lot of people who think that the kings of the north are Russia and China. So that's another interesting one as well, Gog and Magog. Say hello, Rudy. There you go. I'm going to go down. There you go. Yeah, that's a little bit different, the Gog and Magog, but I like looking at different stuff. I heard of that many years ago. So here we go. Gog and Magog. And I think it says here, the modern prophecy. Here we go. It says, Gog and Magog are identified as common as Russia and China. So there you go. Some post-Cold War millenarians still identify Gog with Russia, but they now tend to stress its allies among Islamic nations, especially Iran. Well, we just have to think about BRICS Plus. For the most fervent, the countdown to Armageddon began with the return of the Jews to Israel, followed quickly by further signs pointing to the nearness of the final battle. Nuclear weapons, European integration, Israel's reunification of Jerusalem, the Six-Day War, 1967, and America's war in Afghanistan, and the Persian Gulf. So that's really interesting too, Gog and Magog. Thought I'd put it out there. NW Know-It-All. New World Order Know-It-All. I just discovered we can all reduce our carbon footprints by taking more. Yeah, I won't say that. Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And also by not eating good food and yeah, taking a lot of prescription stuff, drugs. Jack W from Florida. Hi, Jack. Frank Pizzo says, starting to get fake Monaco 64 spam on Rumble. Well, I post most days, most of my videos on Rumble. I'm not sure about the spam. Profile says, read Ezekiel 38:39. Dog Magog. It's Gog Magog. There's a golf club in England quite famous called Gog Magog Golf Club. I've never played there. Devia tendon impact of this on Indian Saudi Europe corridor. Yeah, I heard of that. I guess we still have to wait and see if this escalates. Of course, yeah, that would put it a spanner in the works, maybe, because it's definitely going to divide the West, because a lot of the countries now, they're BRICS Plus. A lot of them are, the Muslim Arab countries in the Middle East. That would, I think Paul, the Sears report, he posted this announcement here from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia about what happened yesterday, what's going on in Israel and Gaza, and they said, and it's, when you read what the Saudis are saying, is completely different to the what the U.S. government, the UK, and the EU say. The UK and the EU and the US, they put all, their onus is all on Hamas, right? But the Saudis say the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is closely following the developments of unprecedented situation between the number of Palestinian factions and the Israeli occupation forces, which has resulted in a high level of violence on several fronts. And they say this, let's continue reading. Kingdom calls for the immediate halt to this escalation between the two sides, the protection of civilians and restraint. Kingdom recalls its repeated warnings of the dangers of the explosion of the situation as a result of the continued occupation and deprivation of the Palestinian people of their legitimate rights and the repetition of systematic provocations against its sanctity. So I think that's, that's completely different from what we hear from our governments. And that's why I think what you asked there about this economic corridor could be in jeopardy. Favorite books by Mises? I like Human Action. That's the one that you can refer to all the time. I've got on my shelf. Yeah, that's the one. I like also the Rothbard books. And also, I think he I haven't read the one on socialism. I think that Mises wrote, but that's supposed to be a good one too. Oh, I see. Fox Moon Gaze. What do you mean you've received spam? You've received like an email, or I don't send people anything, so it's not me. Monaco 64 official. Mark Stasiak just returned from Tallahassee. Florida State won the. Okay. The Florida State Seminoles. I don't really follow. I mean, when I was at university in the States, I guess I followed football, but American football, because we've got football in the UK as well. Yeah, it is very warm, Jane. It's a bit cooler tonight, but it is warm. I think it's going to supposed to stay warm until Wednesday, I think. Gianfranco Bergani says we are lonely with our ignorance and arrogance. Yeah, good point. Mark Stasiak, wife and I just returned from Tallahassee. Yeah, I I saw that already. Let's see, I've got some other things here that we can share. So we did the Saudi Gog Magog. Oh yeah, the other thing that Paul from the Cirrus report tweeted, which is a little concerning, is this. Yeah, and I think this is going to be a problem, like I said. Huge development and will largely not register on most radars. The Secretary General of the Arab League is flying to Moscow. The reason should be obvious. Oh yeah, they're going to go talk about what's happening in Israel and the Gaza Strip, or if you want to call it Palestine, which has shrunk, of course, quite a bit. And that's something that we could go over, but I don't think we'd have time to do it right now. Yeah, Rudy's going under the desk now. He likes lying under the desk. Salad, apart from gold and silver, what do you think about the future of humanity? Well, I think human beings, it's all about cycles. And right now we're in a bad situation, but things will get better eventually. I think one of the reasons why things are bad is because morals, have fallen. It's a little bit like the Roman Empire when they started debasing the silver and the gold. Everything went to pot, and that's why it collapsed. And we've had the same thing in the West. And that's why I focus on gold and silver. I mean, that's part of my channel, but it's I think everything that's happening is a symptom of the fact that we don't have sound money or honest money. So when that happens, the whole of society and the economy is not honest and sound anymore. And the powers that be can do a lot, because they can just print and create this currency out of thin air and take us through all these crises. So, but things never last forever. They always change. So I think human beings, they always adapt, generally, not all of them. And then, I still have hope that, the majority of people are decent and they want the best for everyone and their families. But unfortunately, there's some psychopaths out there who are in charge, or sociopaths. And that's the whole problem. Pete Dutois sending you all love from South Africa. Great. Yeah. No property rights. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's that's right. When they create currency out of thin air and buy your stuff with that, that's theft, in my opinion. So Robert, oil 150 in a few months. I mean, back in 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, started October as well, oil was around $3, and by the end of March, it was at 12. So that was 4 times. So you do the maths. Right now, we're around 80. I'm not saying it's going to 320, but it could very easily go to 150, like you're saying. Hannah says, thank you, Mario. Always learning interesting new things from you. Oh, you're welcome. I guess I've been around a little longer than a lot of people, so it helps. Rudy for peace. Oh yeah, Dylan Roberts registering things. Yeah, that's right. That's why, like, when you buy one of these, like a silver coin, you don't really register, you just hold it. That's why they don't like it. Brazilianaire, how high do you think mortgage rates could go? I don't know where you are, so maybe, but let's say if you're in the US, I think it could definitely get near 10% within the next 18 months. In the UK, I think it's around 6. We could go up to 7 or 8, and only it's lower than in the US because they're usually 2 to 5 years. And in the US, a lot of the mortgages are 30 years. So yeah, a lot higher. Echo, no, the Americans haven't built their strategic petroleum reserves. That's the other thing. Last week, oil dropped like, I think on Monday it was trading almost around $91 WTI, and it traded as low as 80 last week. And I found that strange, that really sharp drop. And you kind of wonder if they knew something was going to happen this coming week, and they had to do that in order to close all their shorts. Just and also gold and silver in the last couple of weeks have been hammered. Were they aware that something was going to happen? I mean, it's possible, these people, they run everything, and that's why they keep a lot of power, because they know ahead of time what's going to happen because they pull the strings, right? Richard Pictures from New Zealand, good morning. Impact on U.S. stocks. Well, I think initially it could hurt U.S. stocks, because if oil goes up massively, I think interest rates will go up. But then, the Fed could always step in, emergency. It's like a lot of papers I saw today are saying this is Israel's 9/11, and they could use that as an excuse. Not Israel, it's just Israel, but even the Fed to cut. And then if they cut, or stop hiking and then do QE, it would put another rocket up stocks, but it will be very volatile, I think. AJ, mate captain, is it legal to hold large quantities of gold and silver in Israel? I think so, yeah. But I guess the best person to ask would be Rafi. We can have him on soon again. Yeah, he is okay. Rafi's up in the Golan Heights, which is northeast, the northeast corner of Israel. And all this stuff is kicking off more in the south and central Israel, even though I've heard that Hezbollah has kind of been active up in the north, but I think he's fine. Thank you, Big Shroom, for your super chat. No one I've asked in my life knows the root cause of price inflation. I'm 26 years old, and I think I should distribute Rothbard's book to my friends. Yeah, you should. What has government done to our money? And yeah. Well, and the media as well, and even the universities, they say that CPI is inflation, and yeah, which is completely wrong. Paul T, you do a fantastic job. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, and thank you. Give Rudy a cuddle from my Shih Tzu, Rosie. I will. Yeah, Golden Heights used to be Syrian territory. I'm not even sure if the Golden Heights is officially it could still be a disputed territory. I think they also renamed it Trump Heights or something some years ago. DB, opening overture of World War III, possible. I mean, I didn't want to go on too much about that, but escalation could mean that. And I think I listened to an English guy. He's got a YouTube channel, History Debunked, I think. He's really good. And he said, if you look at World War II, in the UK, people say, oh, World War II started in 1939. But that's because that's when the British declared war on Germany. But there were a lot of other conflicts that started a year or two or before that in the 30s. And then it finally culminated. So, and we've had a lot of conflicts the last few years. So, yeah, this could be the one that triggers it. I hope not. Mr. Brozilla, I watched your interview with London Paul. I think that he should change his name to CCP Paul. Does he know about tofu dreg? I don't know what tofu dreg is. No, I don't think London Paul is a member of the Chinese Communist Party. He's British and he lives in the Netherlands. I think he just tries to analyze things without being biased. That's all. Unfortunately, and this is what I'm trying to do here with this analysis. I'm not taking sides and just trying to see how it's going to impact us individually, because all this thing about taking sides is what the bankers and the people who run the world, they want us to do, so that we are at each other's necks. So yeah, maybe you should contact London Paul. You know, he does have a blog, The Serious Report, and maybe you can ask him whether whoever this tofu whatever is, if he knows him. So there you go. Oh yeah, I saw someone mentioned that this is like the Pearl Harbor. And I don't know if I've told you this before, but when I was in high school in Brazil, I went to the American high school in Rio, and I think I was in 10th grade, and I had to do a book report for history, and I chose the Pearl Harbor attack. And I did a bit of research, and we had a really good library, and I took a few books out and I read them. And this was from the library of the American school in Rio. And my conclusion, I was about 15, I don't know, 16, was that the Americans knew the Japanese were coming, and they just didn't do anything about it. So, and I guess the attack on Pearl Harbor was the excuse that Roosevelt needed to take the US into the war, because prior to Pearl Harbor, Americans didn't want to go to war, you know, fight another one of Europe's wars or the rest of the world's wars. So yeah, that's ironic that they call it the Pearl Harbor, because I think Pearl Harbor was a false flag. Indorama, do you think this conflict will accelerate the dollarization by BRICS members? I think it could be America, you know, the West's attempt to stop the dollarization and the BRICS, but we'll have to see, you know, who comes out on top. Yeah, perfect pretext. Pearl Harbor, yeah. Echo, yeah, Gold Investments does still have 5% off on sovereigns. That's what Oliver actually sent me a message yesterday saying that it's still on. So yeah, it's Monaco 64 SOV. That's what you have to use. That's for the various date sovereigns on Gold Investments website. The other false flag, well, that's what we think, you know, it's what I think, was the Maine. I don't know if many of you know about, you know, remember the Maine. That was the US ship that was in Havana Harbor. I think it was 1898, and it sunk. And I think it was William Randolph Hearst. It was called yellow journalism. He blamed the Spanish, said, "Oh, they sunk the Maine. We have to go to war with Spain." And later it was found out that there's a problem in the ship, and it just sunk. It wasn't the Spanish who bombed it. but it triggered the Spanish-American War, and the U.S. Basically took over a lot of territory from the Spanish Empire. Yeah, so there's another possible false flag. Boris Perez, where's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the situation? Yeah, I cover that. Their foreign ministry posted an announcement yesterday, and they said that they hope that both sides stop, the violence and ceasefire. But they also say that this is not surprising because the Palestinians have not been given, right treatment for years, and they're not surprised that this has happened. So even though they're diplomatic, they're not like the US government or mainstream media here in the UK and the UK government. So it's different than us. What's going on with the bond market? Bond markets, well, I cover the bond markets almost every day, and I have covered it for years. I think we are in a bear market in bonds. We had 40 years of a bull market, and now it's going the other way. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised, and so the mainstream is already waking up to it. So yeah, all the easy money we had for at least, well, particularly in the last 20-25 years, that's all finished, and that's controlled by the bond markets. I'll take a couple of more questions. It's almost time. I'm gonna have a sip of my water. Jay says S&P to 420 and oil to 420. Excuse me. Yeah, 1-to-1 ratio, huh? Yeah, I think tomorrow is Columbus Day or something. So it's a federal holiday in the US. So I think the bond markets might be closed, but I think the futures will open. Does a bear market in bonds mean a bull market in stocks? Usually, no, not really, because when bond prices go down, their yields go up, and the lower the yields, the higher stock prices go, because that yield is used as the yield on the 10-year treasury is used as the risk-free rate of return, which is used to discount stocks. So the lower that is, the higher the stock prices are. But if yields go up, no, stocks don't do well in a bond bear market. No, Peter Barnacle, I have not watched Adapt 2030. Mr. Brozilla, this is the last question here. Please see the substandard constructions in China. Tofu drag is the poor standards of construction. The buildings crumble and fall apart. People die. Just search tofu drag. Yeah, I mean, there's bad infrastructure everywhere, and there's good infrastructure everywhere as well. I'll look it up though. All right. Yeah, I think we're gonna things are gonna get interesting. So we're gonna keep an eye on things, and I wish you all a very good rest of the weekend, or if you're in New Zealand, a good week. It's already Monday there, or anywhere else out there. And let's hope that what's happening in the Middle East just de-escalates, but somehow I don't think that's going to happen. So take care, and thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.